It's nothing new that if you're in the intel agencies, you want to try and get as much blackmail on powerful people as possible. Easy, not hard. And this is no longer just speculation. First of all, the evidence that shows that Epstein was a creation of either Mossad, Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, Saudi intelligence, or maybe he was just a hired gun. Maybe he was just a guy that countries would go to and park a couple $100 million and say, hey, can you get one of the members of the royal family with a 13-year-old so we can get them to do what we want to do?
I'm Frank Vaughn. It is September 26, 2025, and some thoughts are very dangerous. And Charlie Kirk was expressing to his massive audience through his very powerful organization some of the most dangerous thoughts and opinions that you can have as an individual in the United States. And because he was daring to tell the truth on these subjects, his funding was being pulled. And he was indeed being strong-armed into dropping some of these subjects. Now, shockingly to me, after yesterday, O'Keefe Media Group dropped an undercover video which shows that Trump's lead investigator knew that Epstein was Mossad and CIA and made the allegation that Donald Trump is covering it up to protect his friends and to protect certain powerful individuals, and indeed to protect certain intelligence agencies and certain nations and the coordination that they both share in their foreign policy objectives. This isn't some rando. This is a person key in the Trump administration admitting that there's a cover-up. And shockingly to me, there is just not enough of MAGA that's interested in what's actually going on, because they're so desperate. That groupthink, that group psychology, that circling of the wagon doesn't just occur on the left, it occurs on the right as well. And people are putting their blinders on to the fact that Trump is engaged in a vast cover-up of just what Epstein was, just how powerful he was, and what he used that power to further. There's a saying that if you want to find out who the real power is in the world, figure out the subjects that you can't talk about and talk about them and see what happens. And Charlie was talking about some new subjects. He was having a real moral dilemma. And there's a lot of people out there who are intent on promoting this fake notion that none of these things were actually happening, that he wasn't being threatened with losing money. I mean, it happened. Tucker Carlson was talking about how millions of dollars were being pulled simply because Charlie Kirk was allowing him to speak. And the balls, Tucker Carlson, for giving the speech that he did at that memorial. But I want to talk about Palantir, and we have to do it a little indirectly. This is a book I have called The New Craft of Intelligence. It was released in April of 2002 by Robert David Steele. This is one of the most fascinating books I've ever found in a Salvation Army store or some kind of Sally Ann in my life, because it provides a blueprint for total information awareness in the wake of 2001 and the 3 buildings, 2 plane incident. And the vision, loosely spelled out in this book, is one of citizen intelligence. So it's total information awareness, but the vision that was spelled out in this book was that it would be kind of a bottom-up approach thanks to the internet. It looked at the internet as a means for the people to take back their power and to also provide security. But what ended up happening, as we all know, is the government doesn't trust the people. So they created all of these new intelligence gathering apparatuses and far-reaching draconian measures in the name of security. We had the Department of Homeland Security, we had the TSA getting into granny's panties, which they still do at times. There's a lot of issues that haven't been solved. But April 2002, this book, this fascinating book, which I should probably do a full-fledged review on, because it's a blueprint for what's happened since. It's literally what's happened over the last 23 years. But in 2003, we get Palantir. setup. CIA-backed origins, founded in 2003 with In-Q-Tel funding. Palantir's Gotham. What a name, eh? Gotham platform. Of all the names you could pick in the entire world, you go with Gotham. Evolved from DARPA's Total Information Awareness Program. Again, this predates the Total Information Awareness Program. I would argue this is the blueprint. They just bastardized this vision and made it evil, because that's what government is good at. Enabling early surveillance capabilities for intelligence agencies and laying the groundwork for privatized data dominance. Privatized data dominance, what does that mean? It means the Googles of the world. It means the Facebooks of the world. It means the Mark Zuckerbergs who set up Facebook and said, these idiots, these citizen idiots, are just going to give us all their data. And then we're going to sell it to everybody. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, we're all carrying around. I don't carry mine around. I tend to keep it. If I'm not working, I keep it as far away from me as possible. But you've got phones in your pocket that you're carrying around. They're listening. They're listening for keywords all the time. And if you think it's some kind of conspiracy theory, you've all had the experience where you're having a private conversation with somebody and then all of a sudden your YouTube feed or your Facebook feed is filled with the things that you're talking about. That's not a coincidence. And it's not even necessarily a nefarious government doing that. They're just trying to sell you things and they're trying to create value. And when you install those apps and you start using those apps, you agree with the terms of service, which basically tell you that you're going to be harvested. Your information, your clicks, the way you move your mouse, everything is tracked. Total information awareness, privatized. Now, privatized doesn't mean that there's not an interface between these organizations and these businesses and the various governments. There is. And it's not even hands off. There's a direct interface. And we learned that during the pandemic, that the government has direct lines of communication with these companies to demand, to command censorship on demand. So Palantir, massive government contract, secured billions in U.S. deals, including $1.66 billion Pentagon obligation and nearly $1 billion Navy software contract, embedding its tech in military and defense operations for real-time decision-making. The Trump administration is vastly expanding it. In Trump's second term, Palantir powers immigration crackdowns via ICE, with executive orders mandating agency data sharing, creating a super database for tracking Americans and migrants in real time. Now, we're going to come back to that because we have to talk about something that's happening in another part of the world. Revolving door influences, hires ex-officials from White House, CIA, Pentagon, and Congress, including Trump's federal CIO, Gregory Barbaccia, former Palantir head. This embeds company alumni and policy roles to favor its tech adoption. This is not new. You might recall decades ago how Raytheon and how Boeing and how these massive defense companies would be staffed by people who had either worked in previous administrations or people who left those companies and went and worked in administrations. It's the same in big pharma. It's the same across the board. They move back and forth between public and private life. It's kind of a form of corporatized socialism, if you really want to be honest about it. Global surveillance reach. Deployed Gotham for predictive policing, border control, counterterrorism in the U.S., UK, and EU, with German courts ruling aspects unconstitutional, yet laws were adapted to sustain its use. So, again, this is a theme that you see here in Canada, where the government is found culpable for abusing your charter rights and suspending your charter rights unfairly, but nothing happens. In the German case, the actions were found to be unconstitutional, so they just manipulated the law to make sure those unconstitutional practices had a legal basis, and onwards and upwards they went. So we have from, I've got this up on screen. Province launches his digital Alberta wallet, introduces mobile health card. I find it very interesting that Alberta, the province that is supposedly trying to leave the Federation, the province that's on the cutting edge of the fight back against Ottawa, is also on the cutting edge of rolling out digital ID. And I know voluntary, there's all these words around voluntary, but you see, voluntary today doesn't mean voluntary forever. And so let's listen to Keir Starmer for a minute. Talk about digital ID. This should chill you to your core.
A new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them. And of course, the truth is, we won't solve our problems if we don't also take on the root causes. Our immigration system does need to be fair if we want to maintain that binding contract that our politics is built on.
Note how he invokes immigration. This is a system that successive governments in the UK have broke. Government broke the immigration system. Government allowed the NGOs to start dumping undocumented migrants into Britain. Government unleashed the rape gangs. Government unleashed the cultural destruction of Great Britain to the point where people are getting harassed in their homes because they upset somebody online. People are in jail because of memes. Meanwhile, crime is out of control. Stabbings are out of control. It's only coming from one identifiable demographic group. And the proposal, this is the problem they create, and the proposed solution is mandatory digital ID. You will not be able to eat, you will not be able to drink, you will not be able to live without taking the mark of the British beast. Now, as much as Daniel Smith's government seems to be spearheading digital ID in Canada, they're not alone. This is an old process. British Columbia has launched just this month. There's a lot happening in September of 2025. Connected Services BC and the BC Wallet app for storing and receiving digital credentials, licenses, and permits focuses on secure, responsive government services, and that, a laugh, responsive government services in Canada. That's hilarious. Alberta, partnership with ATB Ventures' Oliu platform for e-services verification, leverages banking credentials for federal access. Quebec is planning to launch its digital ID in 2025, developing a digital wallet for identity, photo, address credentials. Ontario's doing the same. It's on pause right now, but it's delayed largely due to political backlash. Honestly, it's amazing that Doug Ford listens to anybody because he's such a liberal. And Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Labrador, Yukon, these things are being developed. There's also some stuff that I'm just going to throw at you randomly. We have the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework, which has been around since 2016. The Digital ID and Authentication Council of Canada releases the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework overview. I'm not going to go over this, but I want you to understand that planning for this implementation has been going on for almost a decade. You have the Digital Government Standards Institute making detailed plans, these organizations making detailed plans, province by province, to implement this. Digitization of government services by Service Ontario Independent Auditors Report. All I want to get into your minds right now is that this is something that's on their mind. They want it, and it won't. I often wonder if it won't be a conservative government that brings it in. I look at what's happened in Britain with Keir Starmer announcing this digital ID that will be mandatory. You won't be able to live or work or survive if you don't have it. And one of the first things he talks about is how it will strengthen the immigration system that his government and the previous government broke. Now, Britain is a canary in the coal mine. What happens there is often implemented in the rest of the world. It's the experimental place. They see how it's going to go there, and then it emanates. The tentacles of the monster reach across the world, the ocean, and often find their way to Canada. And what does Canada have? A completely broken immigration system. We don't even know how many people are here illegally. We have millions upon millions upon millions of visa overstays in this country right now with very little capacity to track them and very little enforcement capacity to actually grab them and send them out of the country if there's even political will to do so. To the point where you have my wife getting harassed in Saskatoon by, like, this is the thing that arises from that. I know I talked about this yesterday, but what benefit is there to the Canadian economy, mass immigrating people, giving them money, giving them services, a share of services that are already taxed to the point of breaking, where you can't get health care in this country? Like, I got an issue right now with one of my knees, and I've thought about seeking health care for it, but I'm relatively convinced it's just going to be a waste of time. That I might as well just take care of it myself. It's so awesome that I pay taxes for a system that I don't even want to use. And I've got a good doctor. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. Didn't get that COVID-19 shot. Smart guy. And at any rate, I'm not really sure what the benefit is to the Canadian public of having a bunch of new Canadians here who spend their time with full carts wandering around Walmart, harassing working people, harassing everybody, not even begging them. They don't even have the courtesy to beg, not even a sob story. Just walking up to people and assertively and forcefully saying to them, "You pay for my cart. You pay for my cart." Where's the economic benefit to Canada for that? We're still doing it. We're still letting them in. Where's the economic benefit for displacing every single Canadian for TFWs? Which it's actually, as we covered on this channel, is TFWs are a small share of the problem. They're an enormous problem, but they're a small share compared to those who are here under the IMP program, which doesn't require a labor market impact assessment. So we're talking about the wrong thing. We're overrun. So what's a potential solution? Digital ID. Digital ID to fix the problem that they created. Now, I know I mentioned that it might not be a liberal government. It might be a conservative government that implements this plan. And there's going to be people who say, but the conservatives have come out very clearly and stated that they will not do digital ID. But they can change their mind, as they've often done in the past as a party. They can tell you one thing, and they can do another thing, and it's very hard to want to trust them. And if they do it, because I have to believe, even though the Canadian public in general has defied my beliefs in their common sense before, that eventually they're going to tire of Mark Carney and the Liberals, just like I thought they would eventually tire of Trudeau and the Liberals. Instead, what we got was the Canadian public, the liberal voting Canadian public, just got tired of Trudeau. Apparently, they still loved the Liberal Party that rubber-stamped everything that Trudeau spoke in favor of. It was just Trudeau the person. It wasn't the party. And we're still in the midst of a love affair with the Liberals. Now, I know the Conservatives are in lockstep at 40%. It's the highest numbers they've ever had. I've talked about it on my channel. But it just doesn't seem to matter what the Liberals do. They could kill babies in the street. And I'm pretty sure Liberals would be like, they're just advancing postpartum abortion rights. Like, it's difficult to pinpoint when the Canadian public will turn on this corrupt, terrible, psychopathic, sociopathic party that has unleashed violence, crime, mass immigration, destruction, debt, a central banker armed with the levers of power to basically sell off our country and use your tax dollars to invest in his portfolio, invest in the companies that his blind trust holds an interest in. Literally using taxpayer dollars to promote modular home building, pouring, as I covered on my channel, like this isn't fake news stuff, pouring a concrete pad on a hydro easement, then bringing in a fake construction site, then bringing everybody in, doing a fake press conference, and then as soon as they get in the cars, the cranes are in to disassemble the whole thing, leaving behind only the concrete pad, which you can still go and see, as a PR exercise for Mark Carney's business interests. And these liberal red lemmings are just like, yay! This is my Canada. It's ridiculous. But I do have to believe at some time it'll become so glaring that even the public will turn against them and then enter the Conservative Party of Canada, which will probably have a bunch of solutions to the problems that the liberals created. But some of those solutions will likely be really bad ideas. And one of them, I think, will be, regardless of who's in office, they're going to end up trying to push a national framework for digital ID. And even though they might campaign against it, they'll say something like, well, you know, we came into office, we didn't realize how bad things actually were, and this is the only way. We know we said it, but we have to change trajectory. The only way we can solve this is if every single person receives the mark of Canada so that we can guarantee. And they might actually give you a little bit of deportation because, like, they talk about the housing crisis. They talk about the crime crisis. They talk about all of these various crises in isolation as though each individual one needs a plan. The Conservatives do this and the Liberals do this as well. But the fact is, all of these problems are being driven by one thing: immigration. Mass immigration. Because even if you want to accurately talk about the crime problem and money laundering and the real estate market bubble and how it was driven by crime, you want to talk about, it's one of my favorite talking points, is the 84% of Australian methamphetamine that comes from Canada. If you want to talk about all of these things, I guess you can talk about them in isolation, but they're all linked to this open, free-for-all immigration system that we have right now, which is it's legal immigration, it's illegal immigration, it's the IMP program, it's TFWs, we've got triads, we've got ethnic gangs, we've got all this stuff going on in Canada, and it's a very easy thing at some point for your politicians to flip their script and be like, you know what, we've got to vastly cut immigration. And people will applaud it because it's necessary. People are screaming for it. There's all kinds of public energy that's being built up to stabilize the population at current levels or lower, because that was another thing that happened yesterday. If you're not on Twitter, you wouldn't know about it, but I had to address a moron talking about immigration. And my argument's always been that there will never be zero immigration because Canada has needs. We don't have enough babies anymore. Most of the people who are screaming about ethnic replacement have no children. And it doesn't make any sense. Have a couple kids and then become an activist if you're worried about ethnic replacement. 1.3 babies, in spite of all of this immigration, in spite of immigrants having more babies per capita than landed Canadians, we still only have 1.3 babies per woman. We're a nation in decline. So whether you stabilize the population here or you stabilize it at a lower level, we can do that. We can stabilize the population at 35, 30 million. We can go down. We can send a whole pile of people home, stabilize the population. But in order to do that stabilization, you're still going to need skilled immigration. And I got no issue. I don't care where you come from in the world. I don't care about your ethnic background. I care that you're willing to adopt our cultural practices. I care that you're not selling drugs here to launder money through our real estate market. I care that you don't make your women dress in bags and lead them around as though they're property. Like, I care about that. I care that you know how to use a toilet and that you don't just dump your garbage on the road, because that's what you do in your home country, is you just dump garbage everywhere because they've never seen a garbage dump before. I'm all for people coming if they want to adopt our practices and they offer something to the country. And I think we're always going to have a component of that, even if we stabilize the population at a lower level. But I digress. Getting away from the point, there's a lot of energy in this country for a reduction in immigration and the need to address the crime and rampant problems that we have. And so a smart politician will tap into that energy. But when they do, they might bring with them some totalitarian ideas in the form of mandatory digital ID. And the public might be tempted to accept it because they're solving a problem that we've long been screaming about, that they're addressing this immigration problem. And things might get better from that perspective, but you've surrendered at the same time a large degree of your personal autonomy and freedom. In 2024, I very much advocated for the election of Donald Trump over Kamala Harris because Donald Trump said a lot of things I liked, and it was worth a shot because we knew what we were going to get with Harris. She was promising World War III, and that's a very bad thing. We'd like to avoid that. But considering the about face of the Trump administration when it comes to Epstein, Now, when it comes to Ukraine, talking about shooting down Russian jets, even though the help with arms that is being delivered to Ukraine has structurally changed so that Europe is now buying U.S. weapons to then give to Ukraine, Trump seems committed to the war all of a sudden. And people aren't critical enough about this. When it comes to the Middle East, Trump seems committed to using American tax dollars and the American military to further the interests of a country that's supposed to be a foreign nation. One way or another, America has record deficits. They can ill afford to expand the empire, let alone, I should say, they can ill afford to maintain the empire, let alone expand it. But here we are. The money printers are still going brr. I would be hyper cautious about anointing paladins with too much of your faith, paladins on the right, who are promising to address these issues. You may applaud them for talking about these issues, mass immigration, but you really need to pay attention to their methods. And you need to hold to that old saying that actions speak louder than words. Who you are and what you do speak louder than what you say. The Trump administration has given me all kinds of reason to be very disconcerted. It seems domestically there's a lot of good things happening. If you take Palantir and a few of the total information awareness problems off the table, but on foreign policy, it's a neocon administration now, all the way. That should be a problem. It's an administration that's covering up Epstein. Listen, you can be pro-Israel all you want. I'm certainly not a Hamas guy. I am not a Hezbollah guy. I am not an Iranian regime guy. I don't like these things. But the fact of the matter is, even if I support Israel, if they've got agents like Epstein, because look, there's Epstein, there's Diddy, they're not alone in a vacuum. We could probably get into that a little deeper. They're not the first, and they won't be the last, that are operating not just honeypot schemes, but really sick and twisted honeypot schemes, trying to lure people into doing things with minors on camera so that they can be blackmailed for policy later with that. Anybody engaged in that behavior, if you're willing, you really have to consider your own morality, whether it's selective or not. I talked about the fact that I don't like killing kids no matter where it happens in the world. I think it's completely and totally immoral, and I won't support it. And damn anybody that says I should. But I also won't support the practices. There's no such thing as a noble intelligence asset selling minors into sexual servitude for noble gain or for noble intent. There's no such thing. The first priority of the MAGA movement should be seeking the full and unadulterated truth about Jeffrey Epstein and about Charlie Kirk, for that matter. Who is his security detail? Who do they represent? Those are questions that maybe come up in my work soon enough as time goes by, because there's only so much time in a day. You need to, if you're MAGA, put maximal pressure on the administration to keep their promises, to not gaslight you over Epstein. Their own official in the O'Keefe Media Group report admits that Trump is engaged in a cover-up. Not a cover-up of himself, but a cover-up for his friends. Who are those friends?